Welcome back to the Explainer. So if you've ever wondered exactly what it takes to get a group of students out of the classroom and into the real world safely, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're unpacking the strict but totally essential life cycle of planning student educational travel. We'll look at how every single trip is engineered to be not just safe, but incredibly meaningful. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll quickly hit defining student travel, approved versus unapproved activities, supervision roles, safe lodging and transportation, and finally, the final approval process. Let's jump right in. Section 1. Defining student travel. What actually counts as a trip? Because honestly, not all off-campus excursions are created equal. First up is your classic educational field trip. Now, this isn't just an excuse to leave the school building for an afternoon. To get the green light, an educational field trip has to have a crystal clear academic purpose, and it must be directly tied to a specific curriculum need. Next, we've got performance and competition trips. Think about the school marching band, the debate team, or the athletic squads. These are off-campus activities that fall under school-sponsored extracurriculars, and their sole reason for hitting the road is specifically to perform or compete against others. Contrast those with a reward trip. These are designed exclusively to celebrate positive student behavior or maybe perfect attendance. But notice that strict limit right there? A reward trip absolutely cannot be out of state, and no way can it be overnight. They are strictly local, daytime-only excursions. Moving on to Section 2, approved versus unapproved activities. We really need to establish some boundaries on where students are actually permitted to go. The policy draws a really hard line between academics and pure leisure. Museums, historical sites, significant architecture, absolutely, those are highly encouraged. But on the flip side, trips to theme parks, beaches, or excursions just for team bonding or a practice session are explicitly banned. Basically, if you can reasonably do the activity at home or at the school, it just doesn't justify packing up the buses. Section 3. Supervision rules and ratios, or as I like to call it, the numbers game. Let's look at the strict math required to keep students safe. First number you need to know is 2. To keep the school year from getting completely disrupted, classes or teams are capped at a maximum of just 2 overnight trips per year. And crossing state lines, that's even tighter. Out-of-state trips are only allowed every other year for those groups. When a group actually does get to travel overnight, the golden rule is 10. There's a strict, non-negotiable minimum ratio of 1 adult supervisor for every 10 students. That keeps the groups totally manageable. But those supervisors can't just be anybody. Every single supervisor on the trip must be at least 21 years of age. Whether it's school staff or a parent volunteer, that age requirement is an absolute must. Now, I really want to emphasize this next rule because it is huge. When an adult signs up to chaperone, they are never considered off-duty. It doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. at the hotel or how many other adults are around. It is a 24/7 commitment, which also means they have to strictly adhere to the alcohol and drug-free workplace policy the entire time. No exceptions. On top of that, the vetting is intense. Supervisors have to match the gender of the students they're watching. They also have to be official district personnel or officially approved volunteers. And if you're volunteering, you aren't going anywhere until you've cleared rigorous reference and criminal background checks. Which brings us to Section 4, safe lodging and transportation. So where exactly are students allowed to sleep? Well, you can't just pitch a tent in the woods. Lodging has to be a legitimate commercial enterprise. We're talking hotels, motels, inns, or reputable vacation rentals. No outdoor or non-commercial setups are permitted whatsoever. Once you're inside that hotel, the rules get even more specific. There have to be completely separate rooms and restrooms for males and females. Now, adult supervisors do stay on site to maintain that 24/7 duty we talked about earlier, but they must have their own separate bedrooms and restrooms away from the students. Oh, and the policy explicitly recommends just 1 student per bed. Finally, Section 5, the final approval process. Getting the actual green light involves a pretty rigid chain of command. Notice how the authorization scales right up with the scope of the trip. Every single outing, no matter how small, needs the school principal's signature. But the second a trip turns into an overnight stay or the moment it crosses state lines, the principal isn't enough anymore. Those bigger trips get escalated directly to the superintendent or the Board of Education for ultimate approval. And even with the boss's blessing, there are some final logistical hurdles.
Before anyone boards a bus, parent consent forms must be signed. And what about the drivers? If staff or volunteers are driving, they have to complete a district-specific driver safety training course. Plus, non-employee adult drivers have to pass a criminal background check before they can transport a single student.
Okay, so adhering to all these protocols might seem like a lot of red tape, but it's completely by design. It guarantees that trips outside the classroom are incredibly safe, structured, and actually meaningful. Definitely consult the full policy for all the nitty-gritty details, but I'll leave you with this to chew on. When the rules for leaving campus are this tightly controlled, how does that force educators to be brilliantly creative to make sure every trip is an unforgettable educational milestone? Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and keep learning.